Good morning. Welcome to the Downtown Advisory Committee. This is our first experience running a meeting both with people here at the dais and on the phone. We ask all of you to please be patient with us, probably me the most, and we'll try and get through this as best we can. We're going to start off with Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand, and we'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first order of business will be roll call. Mr. Hunt.
Well, thank you, Chair. Chair Troisi.
Here.
Vice Chair Busk.
Here.
Member Wright indicated he would call in. Committee Member Wright, are you online?
I am.
And Committee Member Doherty, we will mark as absent. Committee Member Andrioff, are you online?
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Committee Member Seeberger.
Here.
Committee Member Ashton.
Here.
Committee Member Franklin, are you online?
Yes, I'm online.
And finally, Committee Member Higgins, are you online?
President, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Chair, you have 8 members either in the chambers. You have 4 in the chambers, and you have 4 online, so you do have a quorum. Before we start, I would ask the people who are online, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear very well. It comes a little garbled at multiple talking, but yes.
Okay.
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Okay, and we can hear you, so we'll work through this. We may need to repeat a question now and then or something, but we'll get through it. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
All right, first order of business is the approval of the January 22nd meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Do I see a raise of hands, or for those on the phone, if you could chime in? 3.
Andrea.
Take a vote in the chambers first, so those in favor raise your hand in the chambers. We'll mark that as all 4 in favor. And then why don't we go down individually for people on the phone. So Committee Member Wright, your vote?
I will abstain.
Abstain. Committee Member Andrioff, your vote?
Approve.
And Committee Member Franklin, your vote?
Abstain.
And Committee Member Higgins? And Committee Member Higgins, your vote?
Approve.
Mark it 6 in favor and 2 abstentions, Committee Member Wright and Franklin.
Thank you. The next order of business is there anyone in the audience who wishes to discuss an item that is not current on the agenda?
And Chair, we have no off-agenda requests to speak for.
All right. So with that, we will move on to the first agenda item, which is the consideration of a tentative map, development plan, and regular coastal permit, and request for density bonus to allow the demolition of 2 existing commercial buildings and the construction of a 5-story mixed-use project consisting of 5,422 square feet of ground floor commercial, and 309 residential units, all within a freestanding building to be located on a 5.31 acre parcel located west of North Coast Highway and south of Costa Pacific Way. Let's start with disclosures. Mr. Seeberger,
I've read the materials.
Mr. Ashton,
I've read the materials, and my office is located right across from the project.
Mr. Busk,
Read the materials. I know the site, and there were a number of emails and voicemails that I listened to this morning.
I've read the material. I've also met with some of the applicants, and I've also met with some of the members of the Seacliff Board of Directors. I've read the material, and I've also been to the property on several occasions. Let's see. Now, I have to remember how to do this. All right. Ms. Higgins, do you have any disclosures?
Yes. I read the material, and the location is across the street from my office.
Okay. Ms. Franklin? Roxana? Hello? Hello, Roxana? Let's what do you suggest I do?
Move on to the other, move on, and then come back.
Okay. Then let's see. Who have I missed?
Mr. Wright?
Oh, Richard. Mr. Wright.
Yes, I read through the materials. I'm familiar with the property and the history of the project and the previous.
Okay. One more time, Ms. Franklin? Roxana?
I'm familiar with the history of the property. I've read the material. I know the location well.
All righty.
Andrea? Did you have Michael?
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry. Mr. Androff?
I've read the material and familiar with the property as well.
All right. So with that, our planner, Mr. Greenberger.
Good morning,
Yeah.
Chair Troisi, Vice Chair Busk, members of the Downtown Advisory Committee. I'm Richard Greenbauer, Principal Planner, here to present the first of my two mixed-use projects, which is ALTA Oceanside. As Chair Troisi had alluded to, there are 3 entitlements and a request for density bonus. 3 entitlements include a tentative map, a development plan, and regular coastal permit. Before I get started with my presentation, with the current protocols in place, I ensure that we forwarded over all communications on this item to you via email. There were a total of 17 emails in opposition, 14 of which were requested to be read in front of this body, and I'll do that at the appropriate time. And then there were 5 voicemails, 2 of which were requested to be played in front of this body. And I'll, when it's time for public input, then I'll go through those areas. The applicant has also submitted presentations with audio, and we will play those when it is time for the applicant to present their item. There will probably be a lot of duplicate redundancy in our presentations, so I'll try to keep mine as brief as possible. But the first project is a rather large project on a 5.31 acre site located west of North Coast Highway and south of Costa Pacifica Way, where the Seacliff townhomes are. The request would allow the demolition of 2 existing commercial buildings, commonly referred to as the main attraction on the south portion of the site, and on the north portion of the site is a commercial building that is not operable. There's been no tenants in that space for a period of time. In the aerial, you can see there are numerous outbuildings, and those would be demolished as part of this overall project's request. Once demolition has occurred, if the project is approved, it would allow the construction of a 5-story vertical mixed-use building containing a total of 300 apartment units and 5,422 square feet of commercial space. The request for density bonus was to exceed our density for the area and in return they would provide 26 units for very low income persons within Oceanside. A little further on the background, here's a street view showing the existing conditions of the site. You can see that there is the main attraction, vacant commercial outbuildings, and numerous visitor-serving hospitality type commercial entities there, and an In-N-Out Burger across the street. The site is approximately 6.5 miles from the North County Transit District Transit Center, which essentially makes it TOD. It's within a 15-minute walk, so it fits those parameters, although it's not within our TOD defined boundaries. Previously, back in 2013, there was a second phase to the Sea Cliffs condominiums, which was a mixed-use project, 5 stories in height, ground floor. You can see it was located on the northwest portion of the property. That project has not come to fruition, and in light of that, a new project was submitted. Staff, in reviewing the project, went through the development standards for mixed use, as well as what was proposed for the ALTA Oceanside project. Subject to density bonus, which allows waivers, incentives to promote the implementation of very low income or any kind of restricted income housing. Communities are to look favorably upon these projects, but in working with the applicant over the last year, they have made modifications and have reviewed the site planning numerous times, and the standards are there. Although they do have the ability to reduce parking, they will produce a total of 528 spaces on site, even though it's transit oriented, so to ensure that there is adequate parking for the size and location of the building. Density bonus request essentially increases density by 35%. The max density for the site for mixed use is 43 DUs per acre. With density bonus, they would achieve 58.2 units per acre. In return, they will income restrict 11% or 26 units. The only incentives that the applicant has requested are in regards to the daylight plane, which is adjacent to the residential Miramar project site, where once you get up above 12 feet, you're supposed to set the building back. So they have asked for relief from that component, as well as the parking space dimensions for vertical obstructions. Typically, a space has to have an additional 1 foot width when adjacent to a vertical obstruction. They will still have a additional space, but just a half foot rather than the full foot. So those are the only 2 incentives concessions being requested as part of this project, and it is consistent with parking for state density bonus, which only requires 490 spaces, and then we have the LCP, the local coastal program consistency, which allows for a reduction or 526 spaces, so they are 2 spaces over. The parking structure that is wrapped with the residential and commercial will contain a total of 503 spaces, and then on the southwest portion of the site there will be a surface parking lot with 25 spaces. Those are essentially for visitors, commercial or residential. It'll be managed by the property. Provided an illustrative kind of showing the layout of the land uses within the area. The blue is the commercial retail that would be located along Coast Highway, and then the light yellow would be the amenity areas for the tenants that reside there. So you have yoga, fitness, library, clubhouse that passes through various courtyards, swimming pools, outdoor courtyard areas. And you can see the parking, which is wrapped internally by the residential component, which is outlined in light blue. Provided some illustratives, though a significant departure from what exists today. This is the trend of redevelopment in downtown urban areas to accommodate the needs of housing throughout the state, is to maximize density, and in close proximity to transit makes this a very purposeful site for bringing forward transit-oriented development such as this. Staff has worked with the applicant. They brought forward a contemporary beach-type feel to their architecture. They do have wood elements, good use of materials to ensure that it's inviting as you enter the city of Oceanside from the north down to the south off I-5. The next area is just our slide is showing the site plan with landscaping. They will provide ample landscaping to help buffer and soften the massing of the site. And you can see on the southwest portion of the site, the surface parking lot. The private drive located on the south will serve as fire access, emergency access. And as part of the project overall site planning, they've incorporated some emergency egress areas for the existing Miramar mobile estates, which currently exist with only one entry in and out of the site. So we have worked with them on a fire master plan. It will upgrade services and facilities to the site. And I just wanted to show the illustrative of the amenities and how the overall project has been laid out over the 5 acres. With that, staff recommends that the Downtown Advisory Commission recommend approval of this project to the Community Development Commission. From an environmental aspect, in the report, I had alluded to a draft environmental impact report. Staff was working with the applicant to final that document. That document has been finalized. It is accessible on the city's website, and that will be moved forward to the Community Development Commission for certification. And I'm available for any questions.
Well, let's start with the people on the phone. Are there any members of the Downtown Advisory Committee who wish to ask any questions?
This is Mike Andrioff. I have a on 26 units are to be restricted for low income. How does that?
Good morning. Thank you for holding this hearing and accommodating a new approach to presentations.
How does that actually come into?
This is Ann Gunter of the Lightfoot Planning Group, representing the project applicant.
Hang on one second. We have a little technology issue here.
Real estate development.
Can you ask your question one more time? We had a little interruption here in the council chamber.
My question is, it says 26 of the units that is low income.
Yes?
And how does that ultimately get upheld when the unit's built?
Oh.
Who enforces?
Who enforces it?
Our neighborhood housing, our neighborhood services will ensure that the restrictive covenants are placed upon that, and they will be the enforcement component for the city.
And they also they manage it as well?
They don't manage the property management, will manage the units, but our city neighborhood services housing department will ensure that they're being filled by very low income individuals and that they're being managed in an appropriate manner.
I see.
It's a coordinated effort between the two departments and the applicant.
Were you able to hear that?
Great, thank you very much.
Now to anyone who's on the dais. Kurt.
2 questions. First, when I looked through the EIR, it said that the superior alternative was to have a reduced footprint for this particular project. Why didn't we go with a superior alternative on the EIR instead of what's proposed?
Commissioner Busk, as far as the alternative, I'd have to go back to the document. I don't have that recited to memory, but this is what the project has brought forward.
Okay. Second question is actually 2 more questions. One, the EIR says that the traffic impact of this particular project cannot be mitigated. Sometime in the future, a traffic circle is scheduled to be put in at Coast Highway and 76, which would in fact mitigate some of the traffic that this project is going to generate. Why are we not having this project pay impact fees to help build that traffic circle?
Commissioner Busk, I can't speak. I know we have transportation online that can get into the specific details of the roundabout. We have held numerous meetings regarding that roundabout, improvements along that segment of Coast Highway, as well as the segment to the Harbor Drive. And the Transportation Department has deemed that what is in front of us today is adequate. And when the eventual roundabout comes in, the city will construct that. As far as funding goes, I'll let Transportation chime in on that. Ms. Tila, are you there?
Yes, this is Tila Cotter with Traffic Engineering. This project came into my hands way after I think a lot of decisions were made. But as for the roundabout, the Coast Highway Corridor Study does call out a roundabout to be installed at the intersection of 76 and Coast Highway. And with that, when that project takes place, we're hoping to go into design for portions of Coast Highway starting this next fiscal year. As for budgeting for construction, I don't have a time frame for that at this time, but that's what we have in our future right now.
Thank you. And final question, do you know how many parking spots are going to be impacted by this half-a-foot limitation as opposed to 1-foot limitation? Is it a large fraction or a small fraction of the 500 parking spaces?
Commissioner Busk, I don't have that level of detail internal to the parking structure itself. It's to the extent feasible, they try to offset it so the doors, it's essentially for opening the doors when you pull into the space, so they try to offset them. The exact numbers usually come through during final engineering. During conceptual engineering, they have it placed in there to support it, but they always try to eliminate that to the extent feasible. And I'll let the applicant further articulate on that point.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions from any other members? I think we're good for now.
Okay. Thank you. I'll stay here to play the applicant's presentation.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're ready, Chair.
Yes, let's move on then to the applicant's presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for holding this hearing and accommodating a new approach to presentations. This is Ann Gunter of the Lightfoot Planning Group, representing the project applicant. Wood Partners is a national leader in multifamily real estate development with a number of properties managed and developed in California. They have focused on infill locations to provide quality living options in core urban gateway cities, and they're looking forward to adding this Oceanside project as their third property in San Diego County. This is a significant property and one of the largest contiguous sites in downtown. It includes the main attraction, some old commercial buildings, and the vacant land behind them. Part of the vacant area is the approved Seacliff Terrace site. The ALTA project will combine all of these properties for the new building, and we will revitalize this part of downtown. The project responds to the city's overall need for housing units, including affordable housing, and maintains the commercial character along Coast Highway. The entire building frontage along the street is designed to activate the pedestrian area along this corridor. Along the ground level facing North Coast Highway, uses will include commercial spaces, a public plaza area, leasing office for the apartments, and library space with a conference room and co-work space for the residents. The commercial areas will be suitable for restaurant, retail, or visitor uses as allowed in Subdistrict 7B. The architecture at the street level incorporates high-volume ceilings, with extensive windows and glass entry doors consistent with commercial appearance that will provide visibility for future business tenants. Stone veneer accents and horizontal banding are used to further differentiate the commercial spaces of the building from the residential above. There would be street and sidewalk improvements, including on-street parallel parking spaces and broad landscape sidewalk areas that flow into the public plaza space. In order for this plaza to have regular activity, it will be the main pedestrian access from the parking garage to the commercial uses and to the leasing center, which also includes the mail and package center. It will be an amenity area for the commercial tenants, including potential restaurant uses, and it connects to the front entry of the leasing center so that it can be a hub with pedestrian use within this space. The building will be 5 residential levels wrapping an above-grade parking garage. The parking structure is internal to the building, so that the parking is screened by the residential units and commercial portions of the building. All the retail, patron, and guest parking will be available at the lower levels, and parking for residents will all be assigned. As staff noted, parking will exceed the requirements under density bonus and the LCP, with 528 parking spaces on site to serve the commercial uses, residents, and residential guest parking. These are located in the main parking garage structure and a smaller 25-space surface lot accessible from the southerly site driveway. There will be 10 additional parallel parking spaces on North Coast Highway for public use, which are not included in the project parking count. Primary site access, including entry to the parking garage, will be from the existing Costa Pacifica Way, a private street, which also provides access to the Seacliff residential condominiums to the west. Costa Pacifica Way also has an existing public coastal access for both pedestrians and bicycles that connects with the San Luis Rey Bike Trail. That public access will remain with the project. Secondary access into the site will be along the southern boundary of the property and will serve as a fire lane and access to those surface parking spaces. A dedicated move-in space is included separate from the garage entry so that moving trucks can park off-street to load and unload. An elevator is located near the move-in space for easy access to all levels of the residences. In one of our early meetings with fire staff, they asked us to incorporate provisions that could enhance fire response to the adjacent mobile home park. There are no hydrants within the park and only one on the outside of the park. In order to do this, the southern fire lane is extended near the boundary of the site to accommodate the city's ladder truck. There will be 2 gates for firefighter access through the new property line fencing, shown with those larger red arrows, and those will accommodate firefighter hose pull into the mobile home park from the ALTA project's new on-site hydrants and standpipes. The architectural design is contemporary, simple, and sophisticated. The materials are used to define the building facade with clean lines and providing visual organization to the building. The architectural elements provide animation using both vertical and horizontal relief. Proposed building materials and finishes include stucco walls, stone veneer, and balcony guardrails with varied window orientation for visual interest, relief, and articulation. The color shadings are used to emphasize the hierarchy of masses and planes. Elevations are accented with vertical board and batten for some additional texture. As previously mentioned, the commercial tenant spaces incorporate expansive glass and high ceilings along with stone veneer and metal canopies to emphasize the commercial appearance of the street facade. The use of stone in columns and horizontal banding is carried across the leasing office and library frontage for visual continuity of the active uses on the street. These visual simulations show how the building will be seen from nearby areas. The first is the view from Interstate 5 at the 76 off-ramp. You can see the welcome sign and in and out with the new ALTA building beyond. The next is a view from Coast Highway looking towards the La Quinta and the main attraction in the existing view and the new ALTA project. This is an eye-level view along Coast Highway at the front of the building. Planting is designed to complement the building facade and enrich the pedestrian human scale experience. The building includes several areas for residents to enjoy outdoor recreation and relaxation, with 3 resident courtyards and a 5th level view deck. The most eastern courtyard has an exercise theme with outdoor equipment and connection to the resident fitness center. The western courtyard has a pool for lap swimming or relaxation and associated outdoor seating and lounge space. The central courtyard has barbecues, dining, and lounge seating areas. Between the pool courtyard and the central courtyard is a pass-through club area with a catering kitchen and seating area that connects the 2 courtyards and provides a large interior-exterior area that can be used for special events. The view deck is highlighted in between the fitness and central courtyards. This will allow another gathering area to enjoy ocean breezes and views. In addition to these extensive shared open space areas, private outdoor space is also provided for residents on their individual balconies and patios. Traffic has been expressed as a concern of the neighbors related to existing conditions along North Coast Highway. This stretch of the road has many commercial driveways along the segment as shown in this slide, and they serve multiple existing businesses as well as Costa Pacifica Way. The in and out across the street has 2 existing driveways, north and south of Costa Pacifica, and the existing center 2-way left turn lane has been problematic with conflicting left turns between Costa Pacifica and the southern in and out driveway. Costa Pacifica is part of the project site, and the ALTA project will also use it for primary access with a new entry from Costa Pacifica to the parking garage. A detailed traffic study was completed for the project, and improvements are proposed based on those findings. Staff noted there's a significant traffic impact which occurs on this segment of Coast Highway. The impact is due to the capacity of the street, and the only way to increase the capacity would be to widen the road and add lanes. That would conflict with the Coast Highway plan, the circulation element, and would impact many existing businesses, and was determined to be infeasible. However, the project will be making improvements to help improve traffic flow and reduce some of the existing conflicts. The project will dedicate additional right-of-way along Coast Highway to meet current city design standards for travel lanes and bike lanes. Consistent with the Coast Highway plan, a pedestrian crossing with bulb out, continental crosswalk, and flashing beacons will be provided at Costa Pacifica Way. Other improvements are to create a dedicated northbound left turn lane at the intersection. This will convert a portion of the 2-way left turn lane with raised medians on both sides of the new left turn lane for traffic control and left turn restrictions at the southerly in and out driveway. A refuge median will be located at the intersection for vehicles turning left from Costa Pacifica Way. Keep clear pavement markings will be added for southbound lanes so this intersection is not blocked during heavy traffic periods. Costa Pacifica Way itself will be widened near the intersection to add a second eastbound lane for separate left and right turn lanes. These measures will improve traffic flow and efficiency through this segment by organizing movements and vehicle queuing while keeping within the designated street width and design standards per the general plan and the Coast Highway plan. The ALTA project will add new apartment homes at market and very low income affordable rates, along with new commercial space along Coast Highway. The combination of uses, the high quality architecture and landscape are designed to be another appealing draw into downtown Oceanside for visitors and future residents with a contemporary design and appealing amenities. This project is an opportunity to continue revitalizing this portion of downtown, and we ask for your support. I'm available to answer questions, as are members of our project team. Thank you.
Let's start with the members of the Downtown Advisory Committee who are on the phone. Is there anyone on the phone who has a question for the applicant? Hearing-
Do not.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying I do not.
You do not. Ms. Higgins?
No question.
Mr. Wright?
No questions.
Ms. Franklin?
None from me either.
All right, then we'll move to members who are on the dais. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Busk?
Could applicant answer that parking along the wall question I had? How many parking spots are going to be impeded and smaller than called for by ordinance?
This is Ann Gunter. The parking garage, if you can see the floor plans, has quite a few columns within it. And as Mr. Greenbauer mentioned, that primary reason for that separation is to allow room for car doors to open. So the majority of the spaces where there'll be this reduction, the columns will be spaced under the design, basically at the front and the back of the car, in order to allow for car doors to open and have an open space. Within the entire garage, again, it depends on where there are internal walls, and because these parking spaces wrap both internally and on the ends, we're estimating somewhere between 15 and 25 spaces might be affected by that. I'm sorry, there'd be 15 to 25 spaces that would be lost if we were not able to have this reduction in spaces, which then puts us well below the number of parking spaces required.
Okay, thank you. It's not as many as I had feared. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Seeberger?
Yes, thank you. So it seems like traffic in that area seems to be a concern. And one of the things I understood from the presentation is widening is not an option, but they redid the configurations of left-hand turns. And the one thing I didn't hear, though, and maybe I missed it, was, yeah, it's a proposal, but have we approved that new layout and design and left turns and medians and all that stuff? Or is that still in the proposal phase? Has our experts looked at it and said, yes, this will work and alleviate the traffic issue?
Committee Member Seeberger, and communications with our Transportation Division, that has been an acceptable alignment and infrastructure improvement to address impacts to the extent they can for that segment.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions. My first question is, the access from this particular project to the beach seems to be through, pedestrian access, excuse me, not car access. Access from, the tendency is going to be to want to, if you live in this project, you probably are going to want to go to the beach. And currently, as I understand it, the pedestrian access to the beach would be through the Sea Cliff project. Am I correct in that?
Chair Troisi, from a staff perspective, yes, that's with the Sea Cliff project, that is the coastal access for pedestrians. It's heavily utilized right now, people from the beach coming up to in and out, and will be maintained as public access to the coast.
So if it's currently being heavily used and we're now adding more people, it would seem like a walkway for pedestrians on Costa Pacifica would be an, I don't know if you'd call it an amenity. I would actually call it something that would be required to provide safe access for these people walking back and forth, using amenities that we want them to use, but not being able to safely get to those. Once they get to the trail, they're fine. But from these buildings to there, they have to walk in the street, as I understand it, unless I'm misunderstood.
Chair Troisi, okay, I've brought up the slide. Let me get this Jeff, is there any way to mute it so I can pull this slide up real quick? Thank you. So on the site plan that I've brought up, you can see the pedestrian walkway that does exist currently on the site for pedestrians, although it's understood that a lot just utilize the road, can't get people to utilize facilities unless they're going to get ran over by a car. But there are existing pedestrian walkways that lead down slope through Seacliff to the coast.
So when I was out there, I guess my memory of it was that once you get beyond the zigzag, then you end up in the parking lot, and you basically have to cross the parking lot to get to the gates that take you to the trail. Is that correct?
Let me defer that question. If Ann, do you have a slide that details that a little better in your presentation?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have something specific, but that designated public access does have a sidewalk in front of the existing Seacliff buildings, and you do have to cross in order to get to the bike trail. They've got a small parking lot through there, so the
Right.
connection through there is designated, it is paved. I think that some of the issues that have come up in our discussions is that people are walking in the street rather than using the sidewalk. And so that's why we have, as part of our project, and I think this was discussed a little bit in the EIR, agreed to do some additional signage on there to direct people to that sidewalk and to potentially add extend some fencing so that it is less appealing for people to go into the sidewalk or go into the street rather than staying on the sidewalk.
Great. Okay, thank you. Along the same lines, with more people now coming onto Costa Pacifica, it would seem to me like I know one of the several letters that we received, the residents of Seacliff were concerned about people turning around and either getting lost or thinking that there's parking further down and realizing that there isn't, and then having to turn around and come back. Is there any possibility of some sort of turnaround that gets you turned around before you get into the Seacliff project? Or is there proposed signage that would allow us to reduce the likelihood of congestion of people going into the project and then realizing, no, there's no more parking down here, this is another project? I see the likelihood of that as pretty high myself. It's a small area, there's lots of cars, people are not familiar, and I could see that being a real hindrance to the people who live in Seacliff versus the people who live in the new project. Can you?
That's actually something that we've also discussed regarding adding very clear signage for the entry to the parking garage, making it clear that that is the access into both the apartment building and parking for the commercial uses, and adding signage. We haven't worked out the exact language, but something that says not a through street or says Seacliff residents only, something in order to make it very clear that people need to turn into the garage if they're approaching the ALTA project. And so that is clear as the entry, and that it is clear that you're not supposed to keep going forward unless you're going to Seacliff.
So I'm someone who wants to go to the beach, and I realize this is not beach access because your signage is very clear. So how do I turn around? Me and the three other cars behind me.
And turn within the garage.
Ooh. Not sounding real fabulous to me. Is there some, well, okay, let's just leave that. But I'm not thinking from a very practical standpoint. I don't think that's a practical solution. And as much as I'd like to think that this is not a big deal, I suspect that there's going to be a number of people who are going to turn down that road once there's a big building and think that there's some way to either get to the beach or to park or do something that I'm not a member of that apartment building or the condos. And now we've got people turning around, and I don't know. From a practical perspective, I'm not thinking that's a great solution. I mean, usually at a condo project, you have some sort of bulb, which currently is there actually, that allows cars to easily turn around because you realize there's gates, you don't have the code, so you have to abort and turn around. I think there needs to be some sort of bulb, for no other explanation, that allows people to easily turn and not have to go into a parking garage and not have to go down to Seacliff and turn around and come back up, so that we don't have neither the apartment people nor the condo people have to be, well, they will be minimally impacted by the people who are lost or not supposed to be where they are. On a different note, the architecture from the street appears to be more street-friendly and more approachable, but from the second to the fifth floor, both up close as well as the views from the freeway make it look very much like an office building. And in fact, the distant view from the freeway, looking past the in and out sign and the Chamber of Commerce sign, really looks like an office building. Now, when you're doing 5 stories, it's not easy to look homey, and I'm not asking for you to do that, but certainly you have added, since I last saw it, you have done a number of things as it relates to the street level approachability, and I do appreciate that. But if there more that can be done to the second to the fifth floors so that they don't look quite so much like an office building, because if I'm going to drive by on the freeway, I'm going to think it's an office park. And part of that's a function of the fact that you have 5-story buildings and they're close together, and that's the way office parks look. But to the extent that you can either add additional material or I'm not an architect, so I'm not going to pretend to tell you how to make it look, but I would like to suggest that before you go to City Council, that there be additional thought given to the architecture on the second to the fifth floor in a manner that is, the quality of what you're doing is very lovely and is much appreciated, and we would think you would be delivering nothing less, but to the extent that you can add something would be, I think, a little more attractive from a housing perspective as opposed to an office perspective. And then lastly, I have to agree with Mr. Busk. As it relates to the roundabout, this is a significant project, and I would be looking to this project to contribute to the roundabout, just as I would be looking to any major project to be contributing to a significant alleviation of some of the problems that will be a result of this project. Now, I realize that you are doing a number of improvements on the road, and obviously we appreciate that, but those are needed for the project that you are wanting to build, and the roundabout is needed for not only your project, but for the community at large, for which you will be a major contributor. So I would be in support of recommending that there would be some type of contribution made to that roundabout to be set aside until such time as the roundabout is actually built. And those funds should be dedicated, not a general fund. And those are my comments. Anyone else have any comments to make? Mr. Ashton?
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've worked across the street from this property for almost 24 years, and I've just seen this. It's a very blighted part of our community. I think from what I've observed over the years, this area of town has been a great drain on city resources. So I think this project is a very positive step in allowing this part of Oceanside to enjoy some of the prosperity and growth that we've seen a little bit further south on Coast Highway. So I support this, and I'd like to make a motion to support staff recommendation to approve the project.
Public input?
We now need to move on to public comment. I think we're done with the questions from the commission. So if you'd like to, I don't know how you do this with technology, so I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hunt.
All right, Chair Troisi, I do have for the public comments, I have the document as well as the voicemails that I sent to you. I will start by playing the 2 voicemails that requested to be played. Are we okay to proceed with that, Mr. Hunt?
Can you give Richard, can you give a summary of the number of comments and the number that were pro and con, or if that's feasible?
Yes, as I presented earlier, that there were a total of 17 emails in opposition to the project. A majority of the comments, or almost all the comments, were dealing with traffic circulation issues and some public safety issues. Of those 17 emails of opposition, 14 want to be read in front of this body, so I will read each one of those and present the applicant or the person presenting or providing the comment, who that was. And then we had a total of 5 voicemails received in opposition, 2 of those of which wanted to be played for this commission or committee.
And Richard, were there any comments received in support?
There were no comments received in support of this project as of 5 o'clock last night or this morning when I returned to work. With that, I will begin with the first voicemail. Hopefully we have good volume. Back up, Mr. Hunt.
Hello, my name is Sean Allen. This is a comment about ALTA Oceanside Project RT 1900001 on Wednesday, April 22nd at 9 a.m. Hello, yes, and I would like it read out loud. Thank you. I am writing to you regarding the above project. I have significant concerns about public safety that this project could cause, especially how the plans stand today. The quote road, unquote, Costa Pacifica Way is more of a long driveway than a road. A project of this size using this as their primary access to Coast Highway is very worrisome. The corner of Costa Pacifica Way and Coast Highway is already congested with the In-N-Out restaurant along with local traffic. I live in the area and see potential traffic collisions frequently in front of the In-N-Out. Add a project of this scope to the equation and the concern is very real for traffic collisions involving cars and pedestrians. I understand there is another access, but will primarily be used as a fire lane and for just a few of the units. I suggest making that the primary access. Another option is decreasing the scope of the project. Along with safety, public safety, the project plans do not appear to complement and, quote, fit in, unquote, with the city of Oceanside. It towers over the other developments in the area and sticks out like a sore thumb. I wonder if the scope of the project could be altered to be more complementary to the city. Thank you for the opportunity to give feedback on this project. Thank you, Dr. Sean Allen.
And now I will move to voicemail number 2. It did record for 2 minutes and 21 seconds. I know we have time constraints, but I'll go ahead and play it and let Mr. Hunt control that.
Hi, my name is Denise Bueno, and I wish to speak about the agenda item A, which is the ALTA Oceanside mixed-use applicant, Wood Oceanside LLC. So as an owner in the Seacliff community since 2013, I have welcomed all the wonderful and positive changes and growth that's happening in Oceanside. And I'm so excited that the properties on the corners of PCH and Costa Pacifica Way are being developed and given a new life. However, I have huge concerns regarding the safety and the traffic that Seacliff and ALTA residents will encounter with the current plan of ALTA's main parking garage entrance, currently situated or proposed on Costa Pacifica Way. With the current plan, there will be a daily traffic and safety nightmare with over 500 additional cars entering and exiting on a single driveway across from an already busy In and Out and a future Marriott on the other corner. There will be a huge increase in people unsafely walking up and down the middle of Costa Pacifica Way to get to the beach or the marina, as few use the current switchback sidewalk currently. And there will be a huge increase in traffic at the base of the Seacliff entrance with no safe turnaround for those cars that are attempting to get to the beach or just simply get lost. But there are two safer solutions. Number one, change the main access to the ALTA parking garage to Pacific Coast Highway, south of Costa Pacifica Way. And number two, install an entrance gate for the Seacliff residents on Costa Pacifica Way, but include an open pedestrian access for the beach and the marina. So in summary, please recommend that ALTA change the entrance of their main garage to Pacific Coast Highway so that our community and the future ALTA residents can live together in harmony and make
And just for the public record, there were 3 other voicemails. All 5 of the voicemails were sent to each of the commissioners for your review, and they were part of the public record moving forward with this action. The next component will be reading of 14 of the 17 emails that were received. Let me load up the Word document for those at home. And we'll start with number 1, which was submitted by Lou Mortallone. It says, I live at 1021 Costa Pacifica Way, Unit 2311. This project appears to be massive both in size and in types of services expected to be provided for the area, and has not addressed any car traffic and or person walking issues along Coast Highway and Costa Pacifica Way. It will create traffic on Coast Highway is already significant during peak times in the day and creates safety considerations when entering and exiting Costa Pacifica for drivers and walkers. There are no walkways along Costa Pacifica, which would become major access paths for people from this new project to the beach and marina. The bike paths are already heavily trafficked by walkers and bike riders. These are significant safety issues that need to be addressed before the project is allowed to move forward. And that was item number 1. Number 2 to be read was from Lynn, and I apologize if I butcher the name, Katapodis. It says, as Oceanside homeowners, resident safety is a top concern. The ALTA project will spike traffic significantly, more traffic, more accidents. Recommendation, developer allow garage access from ALTA to the planned roadway to the south project site. This would substantially decrease the congestion at the Costa Pacifica Way, Coast Highway intersection. Email number 3 was submitted by Linda and Emil Iwanski, and it states, to whom it may concern, this letter is to express our concerns regarding the ALTA Oceanside project. We live in the Seacliff condominiums on Costa Pacifica Way. Our concerns focus on ALTA Oceanside traffic congestion, garage configurations, and pedestrian safety. The access to our building is by the driveway on Costa Pacifica Way. The current ALTA plan is to offer a single access from its parking garage to exit the development. This will mean that 500 plus vehicles a day would use Costa Pacifica, both leaving and coming. This would dramatically complicate a very busy area and an in and out burger traffic. We'd like to see ALTA modify its plan to allow an exit to the south from the main parking garage. Item number 4 that was submitted electronically is from Richard and Lori Armstrong. They cite, "We have read the draft EIR for the ALTA Oceanside project and have some concerns. The substantial increase in traffic should be a major concern to the city. The draft EIR states the additional trips per day will bring the level of service degradation on PCH to level of service F, unacceptable. Safety of vehicles and especially pedestrians will greatly decrease in this area. Costa Pacifica Way is already the only exit for the Seacliff project. In an emergency evacuation, it would be almost impossible to move safely out of the area with the only egress being shared with ALTA. We would like to suggest a reduction in the size of this project and in addition, add a second garage exit onto North Coast Highway at the southern side of the project." They further stated that we also have concerns regarding the pedestrian traffic and safety of all of us. We would like to see a vehicle gate on Costa Pacifica Way for Seacliff residents. Also, safety and access to the beach could be enhanced by offering a more direct connection to the San Luis Rey bike path. Item number 5 is from Timothy and Megan Haynes. They cite there will be fatalities on Costa Pacifica Way if this project moves forward as planned. Increased pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic poses a significant hazard to Coast Highway and Costa Pacifica Way. This project needs to be replanned or lives will be lost. Submittal number 6 on the ALTA Oceanside project is from Steve Shannon. He cites, "The proposed ALTA development as presented will create an unmitigated traffic disaster at the intersection of Costa Pacifica Way and Coast Highway. Exiting traffic from in and out already greatly impedes the turn lane onto Costa Pacifica. Summer Beach traffic heading southbound from the harbor already restricts left entry turns. The added activity upon Costa Pacifica will spill traffic onto the busy Coast Highway. Pedestrian traffic, already heavy, will be imperiled. This plan, as it stands, creates a nightmare not easily remedied. Please reconsider this project." The 7th email received is from Dan and Patricia Ross. They cite that as designed, the project will create a traffic disaster for those of us living at 1019 and 1021 Costa Pacifica. The only entrance exit to this project is on our street, and our emergency access to PCH will be severely impaired. Please insist on a redesign of this project. Item number 8 was received from the Wangs, Robert and Lei Wang. It's not to be read. It's very extensive, and it gets into a majority of the traffic-related issues in the draft environmental impact report that has been presented to this body for their consideration. Moving on to item number 9. This email was submitted from Joseph and Patricia Woodford, and they do not want it read at the meeting, but it is part of the public record and has been presented to this committee for their consideration. Moving on to email number 10. This was submitted by Michael Sirkin. He cites, "We are vehemently opposed to the ALTA Oceanside project as envisioned. It is dangerously too large. It will create a public safety hazard by increasing daily car trips onto the PCH from Costa Pacifica Way by a factor of 4 or more. In an emergency, it will not be possible to get onto PCH in a timely way. Pedestrian traffic on Costa Pacifica Way for beach access will create a risk to pedestrians as they routinely walk in the street, not on the sidewalk. A project no more than 100 to 120 units could be considered, but only if additional vehicle access north of the project also existed." Email number 11 has been submitted from Deborah Drew. She cites, "As a 20-year homeowner in Oceanside, I am concerned about the ALTA Oceanside project. Traffic on Coast Highway is extreme, especially in summer with in and out. Beach access via Seacliff is dangerous for pedestrians, and there are significant disturbances to natural habitats. Remaining very opposed to this project." Public comment number 12 received is from Todd and Christine Turner. They cite, "My family urges no on Alta Oceanside's current plan. Project scale, massive for the area, inappropriate. Traffic already bad, rush hours will be gridlocked. Huge increase of pedestrians heading to beach down blind curve driveway. Costa Pacifica endangered because nobody uses the zigzag sidewalk. Fire emergency egress will be severely curtailed." Item number 13 received is from Janice Phoenix. She cites, "I am extremely concerned about the project due to safety issues. 600 plus cars a day at our intersection would create loss of lives during an emergency because we would not be able to exit onto the Coast Highway. It will create a dangerous situation daily as hunters walk down the center of Costa Pacifica Way to the beach access." Item number 14 was submitted from Janet Dennis. Cites, "I am an owner, resident of Seacliff. I urge you in the strongest way to reject the Alta Oceanside project and its plan to share Costa Pacifica Way with Seacliff for ingress and egress. Because of its 500 plus potential automobiles, traffic congestion at Coast Highway would be horrendous, and safely exiting during an emergency would be impossible." The 15th comment received is from Charles McBride. It states, "Dear committee members, single point vehicle access on Costa Pacifica Way will create unreasonable traffic. Project will contribute to the level of service, LOS, on coast highways to an F condition. Physical size of project, 616,000 square feet and 5 stories, is more suited to the pier area, not this area." Item number 16 submitted is from Samuel Dennis. It cites, "I own a condo at Seacliff. Traffic has become a problem at lunchtime, in and out, and 4 p.m., Camp Pendleton. Trying to push another 300 to 500 cars through our driveway twice daily commuting is absurd, a dangerous traffic nightmare. The original plan for the site was 2 retail suites and 52 condos. That is reasonable." And then lastly, item number 17 that was submitted by Lori Hacker. It was not requested to be read in front of this body, but it has been presented to the committee for their consideration prior to a recommendation to the Community Development Commission. And that concludes all the emails and voicemails submitted to date.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, I think this is the phase of the hearing where you would go into deliberations with your own committee members.
Right.
And I would suggest that you call on them individually, particularly for the people on the phone, so they don't step on each other.
Okay. Then we'll start with Mr. Wright. Richard, Mr. Wright?
Sorry, I had to wake up my phone. I don't have any particular additional questions or comments. I just want to make the observation that I think it's a good project and I will be supporting.
Ms. Higgins?
No additional questions or comments at this time.
Okay. Ms. Franklin?
I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Androff?
Don't have any additional questions at this time. The points about safety and congestion are well noted. Does look like a good project, but those are very valid concerns. No further comments, though.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Seeberger.
No more comments or questions. Thank you.
Mr. Ashton.
No additional comments.
Mr. Busk.
Yeah, I have a couple. Tila, are you still online?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
Great. When you guys looked at traffic in this area and all the additional traffic coming out of Costa Pacifica and onto Coast Highway, did you look at signalizing that particular intersection because of the increase in traffic and the decrease in service level?
A traffic signal was looked at, but warrants were not met at this intersection. And with the whole concept, with the Coast Highway Corridor Study, where we were trying to get away with traffic signals and putting in roundabouts, this was not an ideal solution.
Thank you very much. And then secondly, is Costa Pacifica a public road? And if it is it possible to gate that to make the current condominiums a gated community?
This portion of road is private, and as for gating it, it would need to meet certain requirements for turnarounds. And so, and there is some standards that need to be met that I know planning might be able to answer a little bit more. But basically, you'd have to have a turnaround to be able to put up a gate.
Planning?
Vice Chair Busk, with the Seacliff project, I know they've been trying for many years to get a gate in that area, and with that local coastal program approval from the California Coastal Commission, that has to be maintained open for access to the west. I believe that was one of the conditions of that project, was not to gate it off and stop pedestrian access.
But could it be gated for automobile access, leaving the current pedestrian access open?
My understanding from the condition that was written that it was not allow for that.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I just have comments other than that. Comments being, I agree with the chair that it is an industrial looking building on the upper floors now. And if there's any way to tone that in such a way to make it more consumer friendly, more like a beach habitat, I think that would be advisable. And I still think that these folks should be held accountable for at least some of the impact that's going to happen at the roundabout, and should pay fees into that roundabout construction project. Thank you.
I have one question, which I'd prefer the applicant answer if possible. Could the applicant please explain why they chose not to have the parking access from the south of Costa Pacifica as opposed to onto the Costa Pacifica street?
This is Ann Gunter. The access was studied. It was one of the questions that came up early in discussions with Seacliff, was to look at alternate access points. We did that with the transportation staff. Access directly onto Coast Highway would have added an additional driveway there with additional conflicts, and the staff thought that would not work. We also looked at using that southern driveway, which is primarily the fire access, and the proximity of that driveway to the 76 intersection, as well as the adjacency to the La Quinta Inn driveway. They felt very strongly they didn't want to have the volume of traffic coming out there, as opposed to at Costa Pacifica, which is an existing private street intersection. With doing the widening at Costa Pacifica and the improvements on Coast Highway, that was looked at as being really the most ideal situation for access along this stretch that has so many other conflicts.
Thank you. I'd like to just add some comments. One, as Mr. Ashton has discussed, the north end of Coast Highway has been in need of enhancement for quite a while and has not received what I guess would be considered the upgrades that the southern portion of Coast Highway have experienced in the last few years. This project would certainly help in that regard in a pretty significant way, and would bring a lot more people to the street, which I think would enhance the viability of additional retail at some point in time. I also noted that the project is lower in height than what had originally been planned. It is offering more parking spaces than is required and or needed. There is a certain nod I would give to the applicant for trying to do as much as possible for the issue of parking, which is always an issue on all major projects. The city obviously needs additional housing. That's at a state level and a county level and certainly a city level to provide very low income units, actually providing the units, not just the income, not just the fees, is also a contribution that we rarely see being offered. I would ask that as part of the motion that we ask for the applicant to see what can be done to enhance the second to the fifth floor in terms of architecture. And I would like to suggest that as part of the motion that the staff and the applicant come to some sort of terms with respect to a contribution for the roundabout. And with that, I would be supporting this project. Would someone like to make a motion?
So I'd like to move that, let's see, where's our motion?
Didn't you have a motion from Scott?
Yes. That we approve, approve the staff motion for tentative map RT 19-00001, development plan, the regular coastal permit and request for density bonus, with the two conditions that the chair added, which is to have the applicant look at maybe softening the upper floor exterior of the building and have the applicant have a conversation with staff about contributing to the cost of the roundabout, which will eventually happen at Coast Highway and 76, to hopefully mitigate some of the traffic impact of this particular project.
Is there a second to that amended motion?
Excuse me, Chair Troisi.
The amended motion.
Rick Wright? Okay, so the motion's been made by Mr. Busk, a second by Mr. Wright. All in favor? Well, let's just do this by voice, I guess. So we'll start with...
Madam Chair, do you want to just go around one more time after the motion's been made? Is there any final comments?
Probably a good idea, thank you. We'll start with Mr. Ashton. Do you have any additional comments?
Sorry, trying to get my mic on. No additional comments.
All right. Mr. Seeberger.
No additional comments, thank you.
Mr. Wright.
None.
Ms. Higgins.
No additional comments.
Mr. Androff.
Listening to all the comments, I'm generally not in favor of the way this project is designed and the cost on Costa Pacifica. I would like to support the project, and I'd be willing to do so under the second motion.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Franklin.
I have no comment, further comment or question.
All right. With that, I will go back, I think by voice as opposed to raising hands, so everyone knows.
I think you should do you can either do hands in the chambers, but then unfortunately I would ask you to go back through
Okay.
for people who are calling in.
So all in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hand.
So for
So
the
that-
record, we'll show that as 4 in favor in the chambers.
And then Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Ms. Higgins.
Aye.
Mr. Androff.
Aye.
And Ms. Franklin.
I say no.
That's a no.
That is a no.
Thank you. And that's everyone.
So for the record, we'll record that as 7 in favor and 1 no vote, Committee Member Franklin.
I think that's correct. Thank you very much, everyone, for this first experience for me, and appreciate everyone's cooperation and patience. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of a development plan and conditional use permit to allow the construction of a 6-story mixed-use project consisting of 1,580 square feet of ground floor commercial, 76 residential units, all within a freestanding building to be located on a 0.47 acre parcel located on the northwest corner of Pierview Way and North Horn Street. Let's first start with disclosures. I think I should probably start with the disclosures. I will be recusing myself from this particular item, although I have no financial gains with respect to this project. I was involved with this project a year and a half ago. I sold the property to the applicant. So in an abundance of caution, I am going to recuse myself from this particular item, and will turn the duties over to the Vice Chair, Mr. Busk.
Thank you. So let's then continue on with disclosures. Mr. Seberg?
I've read the materials and I know where the location is.
Okay. Mr. Ashton?
I've read the materials, including the support letter that was sent this morning. I've spoken with the developer, and I'm familiar with the location.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, I read the staff report and the backup materials, and am familiar with the property.
Mr. Andreeff?
I'm sorry, yeah, I've read the report and have no disclosures.
Ms. Franklin?
I read the report, know the history of the property, and I don't think I have any questions.
Ms. Higgins?
I've read the report and familiar with the project, have no disclosures.
And I've also read the report, and there was an email this morning that I read, and I'm familiar with the property. So with that, Mr. Greenbrier, if you can take us through the project.
Yes, good morning again, Vice Chair Busk, members of the Downtown Advisory Committee. This is the second mixed-use project that I'm bringing forward to you today. This is the first redevelopment of a site in downtown mixed-use project subsequent to the City Council's action to lift the cap on density in the downtown to promote infill projects such as this for higher density in close proximity to transit. With that, the item before you is a development plan and conditional use permit in order to establish a 6-story mixed-use project. The existing site is located on the west side of North Horn, south of Civic Center, and north of Pierview Way. It exists as 3 parcels and combined is 0.47 acres. Consistent with redevelopment of the downtown, those parcels would be merged into one in order to accommodate the 6-story vertical mixed-use building. The mixed use would consist of 76 apartment units and 1,580 square feet of commercial space, and I'll get into the commercial and pedestrian orientation later in my presentation. Previously, this site was approved for a 6-story mixed-use project. It was referred to as the Portola project, and that is an illustrative showing what was previously approved but has since lapsed, and now we've brought forth a much higher density type project consistent with the direction of the City Council of removing the camp in the downtown area. The project under consideration requires approval of a mixed-use development plan through a conditional use permit and proposes site-specific development standards. Unlike the other mixed-use project that I presented to you, this is a form-based rather than numerical-based project where they're utilizing the building envelope for the site to the extent feasible. And as part of the project's overall design and what it brings forward, is the merits that the body should consider in making a recommendation to the Community Development Commission. The 76 units would be a total of 5 stories over ground floor commercial and 3 levels of parking. 1 level would be subterranean, accessed off the alley, and we would have 1 access off of Horn Street for level 1. The zoning ordinance for the downtown says mixed-use proposals with positive design characteristics such as high-quality design and materials, a project that contributes to attractive and pedestrian-friendly streetscape, functional and appealing common open space areas, and consolidation of existing legal lots for a unified site design should be favorably considered in moving a project of this type forward to the Community Development Commission. The illustrative that I have here, although maximizing the building envelope for the site, the proposed mixed use does bring forward high quality design materials through heavy glazing. This building incorporates building integrated photovoltaic and rooftop solar to the extent that the applicant has stated that it'll hopefully provide almost 100% of the power needs for the building through photovoltaic and rooftop solar. They will also propose some vegetated vertical green walls and rooftop landscaping. And then, as I previously stated, the use of commercial storefront glazing in order to create that pedestrian-friendly fill along Horn and carry that down Pierview Way as you proceed west towards the beach. The green aspects on the illustrative show setbacks in the building itself 5 feet as you're along Horn. So there's some articulation there, although it is significant from what exists today, a vacant lot, and 2 small houses to the north, which is the letter that was brought forward in support of this project. It will provide much needed workforce housing in our downtown core area. The next illustrative that I provided, I've taken the various aspects along Pierview. We've worked with the applicant to have them enhance, modify those areas to make it pedestrian friendly, to energize that consistent with other mixed-use projects that have been brought in front of this body, like 901 Pierview, and carry it to the west from the east down Pierview. As previously stated, the integrated photovoltaic would be there. That is the yellow areas. And then the red is a public space art that will create public synergy, allow for the tenants there or persons in the public to put up their workstations, have coffee, but I'll let the applicant and their presenter get into more detail on that area. In addition, there is extensive storefront glazing to the west as you go downslope on Pierview. Initially, those were green walls. We asked for it to read as commercial, so in the future, should commercial become more viable and in need, then they can convert these spaces. So they've made it read as a commercial storefront as you proceed from east to west. Overall allocation of space throughout the vertical mixed-use building would be stacked flats on floors 2 through 6 for the apartment units, 76 total. And they would consist of 5 one-bedroom units with an average size of 600 square feet and 71 two-bedroom units with an average size of 875 square feet. Approximately 1,580 square feet of commercial space along Horn Street, and that's been separated into 3 separate commercial spaces that could also be combined or utilized in various forms. In addition, the previous areas that could be potential commercial space comes up to a total of 715 and is located along Pierview Way. And going back to the parking components, there are 3 levels, as I previously alluded to. The access would, for level 1, would come off of Horn Street, and then there would be 2 access points off the alley for levels 2 and 3, including the subterranean level. There's 150 residential parking spaces, 10 on-street spaces for the commercial suites, which is allowed per the zoning ordinance for the downtown area, and 68 of the parking spaces for the units will be in a tandem configuration, which is also allowed as part of this review period for the mixed-use project. In addition, the applicant has provided 10 visitor spaces on parking on level 1, so to ensure that it doesn't spill over and add to additional parking deficiencies along the public right-of-ways. In addition, knowing that it's transit-oriented exactly a half mile from the transit center, they have provided 76 indoor secured bicycle spaces, as well as 1 compact space and 3 motorcycle spaces, all in addition to the required parking. So it gives the tenants the opportunity to select the mode of transportation of their choice, whether it be it mass transit, bicycle, or vehicular. The next image that I provided for the body this morning is a neighborhood context study. And this is showing previous projects that have been approved, not constructed at this time. And most recently, the one that is denoted as P is the 901 Pierview mixed-use project that will have a total of 12 dwelling units and commercial space. And then farther to the south, you'll see letter M, which is the Belvedere project. So throughout, you can see other areas, N and O, Q, R, and A, that all show the various 6 and 7-story residential buildings, mixed-use buildings, some 3, 5, and 6-story North County Transit District buildings, as well as some of the newer developments to the west in our City Mark, our 5-block master plan on the beach. And then just to show context to the east and the north, we did provide 2 studies. One recently approved and constructed is J, which is 4-story over parking multifamily residential, and then the 3-story over parking multi-residential immediately along Horn and Civic. So it would be a continuation of massing, although it is significant from what exists today. It will help infill this site and continue with the urban core development and focus on mass transit and transit-oriented type development in the downtown area. With that, staff recommends that the Downtown Advisory Commission recommend approval of the project to the Community Development Commission, and staff is available for any questions.
Great, thank you, Richard. Do we have any questions for staff at this point?
Can I make a comment?
Please do.
Thank you for this contextual study. You know, when you consider the project just on its own, and it's kind of breathtaking to think of that novel project sitting there. But actually, now that you remind us of all the other buildings in the general area that are also quite tall, it's helpful, and I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Any other comments? Then we have an applicant presentation.
We do have an applicant presentation, and I will set that into motion. And that has audio as well, like the previous.
Good morning. This is Ann Gunter of the Lightfoot Planning Group, representing the project applicant and owner for the Sunsets project. Last year, the City Council set out their desire to incentivize housing creation in the downtown, removing density caps to encourage additional units in this transit-friendly area. Their goals included reaching a critical residential mass to create a vibrant 24-hour downtown and help in the ongoing transformation of the urban core to be cleaner, safer, and even more Good morning. This is Ann Gunter of the Lightfoot Planning Group, representing the project applicant and owner for the Sunsets project. Last year, the City Council set out their desire to incentivize housing creation in the downtown, removing density caps to encourage additional units in this transit-friendly area. Their goals included reaching a critical residential mass to create a vibrant 24-hour downtown and help in the ongoing transformation of the urban core to be cleaner, safer, and even more welcoming. This project is one of the first, if not the first, to implement this direction in public policy. As shown on this slide, the property is located in the urban core and is at a prominent corner entering downtown. In designing the Sunsets building, the applicant saw an opportunity to transform this key corner into a striking, modern, urban infill development to activate this long vacant site. The project will provide 76 much-needed rental units, along with activated spaces on the street, to continue the existing commercial character in the area. The building design uses zero setbacks along the street, with the sidewalk next to the building. That is typical for high-density downtown urban infill structures. It reinforces the pedestrian relationship to the building along the street and enhances the vibrancy and excitement of the downtown urban fabric. This building has 5 levels of residential units over 3 levels of parking. The upper parking level is behind the commercial spaces on the ground level at Face Horn Street. The land slopes down to the alley about 11 feet, and the design takes advantage of that elevation change to screen parking levels. The building reflects the slope with a stepped roof line and an expansive roof deck on the lower western part of the building. The ground level facing Horn will include small, flexible commercial spaces. The design allows opportunities for smaller neighborhood-serving businesses to operate in downtown Oceanside. These spaces would be available for various commercial tenants and will also accommodate amenity spaces for the residents, such as a fitness area, meeting, and co-work spaces. The building lobby and management office will also be here. The architecture for this level incorporates features such as extensive facade glazing and glass entry doors to give a commercial appearance and to provide public visibility to the activities and businesses inside. The project design includes a corner plaza space at the intersection of Horn and Pierview, provides an area for art or murals and informal seating areas to make an open and welcoming corner. This also wraps the commercial design and character along Pierview Way. At the lower western end of the building, near the alley, an activity space that includes a pet wash and laundry is provided using large windows and glass to visually extend the commercial along this street. A water element has been added between the new window glass and the corner plaza area to provide added visual interest along the sidewalk. The Sunsets building incorporates a number of environmental sustainability features. The most visible is the building integrated photovoltaic panels that show as a blue-gray grid on these elevations. These innovative panels are used as a vertical architectural feature on the exterior walls, extending from above the first floor up to the cornice. They provide for a distinctive design and add visual interest in the wall planes. They also greatly increase the amount of solar electricity to be produced on site in combination with rooftop solar panels. The building includes other advanced features and high-efficiency systems using the latest technologies for heating, ventilating, air conditioning, water heating, along with vegetated green walls on the alley for screening and rooftop landscaping. Using renewable and high-efficiency energy technologies reduces the building's carbon footprint and long-term cost to residents, which ultimately makes it a more sustainable project for everyone. This overview slide shows each floor of the building. The first floor is level with Horn Street and is outlined in red at the upper right. Parking on this level is accessed directly from Horn Street. The other 2 parking levels are below and show across the top row. The parking levels are not interconnected in order to better manage parking and enhance privacy and security for the residents. The 2 lower parking levels take access from the alley, and the residential levels begin on the second floor through the 6th floor. This is a section view through the building with Horn Street on the right and the alley on the left. The residential unit levels are highlighted as levels 2 through 6, the second floor being the first residential level. While it's not visible in this section view, there is a central courtyard with planters and seating areas open to the sky, available for all the residents as a relaxation and gathering space, in addition to the private balconies or courtyards attached to each unit. This highlights the main level at grade with Horn. In addition to the commercial and amenity spaces, it has the uppermost parking garage level and provides convenient parking for visitors along with some resident parking. This is parking level P2, which is at grade with the alley, but below grade at Horn Street. This level has resident parking and includes the bicycle parking areas for residents. The lowest parking level is below the alley grade and is accessed from a second entry from the alley that ramps down to this level for resident parking. Within all the garage levels, tandem spaces are used for 68 of the 161 total spaces. All of the spaces that are in a tandem configuration will be assigned resident spaces. Commercial parking is provided along the streets as allowed in the downtown. There will be 10 spaces along the property frontage where 8 are needed. These will be in the parallel spaces on Horn and the angled spaces on Pierview. The project will also be adding 3 angled spaces on Pierview where there's an existing driveway curb cut that's being eliminated. This slide shows an overhead view with the highly amenitized roof deck visible. There's a pool, areas for dining, media, games, and pet activities. The project design includes other areas for social gathering, something we're all missing right at the moment. And there's an intimate courtyard, a social lobby with coffee bar, and an indoor party room with a kitchen. Other amenities include activity areas like a fitness center and yoga room, convenience amenities that have co-work and conference spaces, the parcel delivery room, self-storage units, and a large bicycle parking area, and purpose-oriented rooms for bicycle repair, music practice, arts and crafts, pet washing, and the large laundry that we talked about earlier. These common areas are designed to complement the individual units to provide quality of life amenities to enhance the downtown lifestyle. This building will continue the transformation that's occurring in downtown Oceanside. A context study was prepared to illustrate the current surroundings of the Sunsets project, including some of the newer mid-rise buildings of 4 to 8 stories. This image shows the view directly west of the site as the land slopes toward the water. The existing 6-story Oceanside Terraces is on the left at A, and the 7-story Wyndham Resorts is at D. Several new buildings that have been constructed but aren't shown in this image are Pierside North and South at B, the Beach Resort Hotels were C, and Salt at F. These are all 4 to 5 stories. The nearby residential building at G is 4 stories and about 55 feet high. This shows some of the buildings from the previous image, and the shaded area are the blocks that are outside the downtown district to the north. This is more of the area to the north with the Marina Towers in the background at about 148 feet high, and starting the transition to the newer multifamily buildings to the northeast of the project site. This is a better view of the new buildings to the northeast that are 3 and 4 stories, and it also shows part of the 10-acre Mission Square Shopping Center directly east of the site. The rest of the shopping center is seen here with Oceanside High School in the background and their new multi-story buildings that are about 42 feet tall. And finally, this view to the south, southwest that shows Oceanside Terraces from the first image on the right at A. 2 projects nearby have been approved but haven't begun construction. M is the 7-story Belvedere project across from the high school. That mix of uses includes hotel, residential, and office retail uses. It's about 79 feet high along Horn Street and steps to about 54 feet high at Clementine. And P is the recently approved 901 Pierview mixed use project at about 49 feet high. Additional existing buildings shown include 2 senior living buildings at N and O that are 6 and 7 stories, and the Ocean Lofts at R that's 5 stories. This slide shows the sunset buildings from the intersection of Horn and Civic Center Drive for some additional context. The Sunset's mixed-use development will transform this key property in downtown using a striking modern design for this urban infill site. It will provide high-density housing and location-appropriate commercial spaces for the community. It will further activate this area with additional full-time downtown residents, provide extensive amenities to enhance their quality of life, encourage the use of transit with reduction in car trips. That all leads to the enjoyment and convenience of living in this vibrant downtown area. The project implements city goals and policies, including those for housing, transit-oriented development, and environmental sustainability, enhancing the streetscape, and will contribute to the ongoing transformation of Oceanside's urban core. Sunsets is an opportunity to add new housing units, to promote a 24-hour downtown, and add patrons for downtown businesses. We ask for your support and recommendation for council approval. Thank you for your attention. Howard Jacobs and I are both available if you have questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ann. I know you're out there somewhere. I'd like to take questions from the committee first on the telephone. I'll do that by roll call if it's okay. Starting with Ms. Franklin. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Andrioff, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Higgins?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Wright?
No questions, thank you.
So we'll bring it back then to the chamber. Any questions in the chamber?
No questions, thanks.
No questions.
I just have actually one question for either the applicant or staff, and then a comment. The question is, we're required by state law now to have electrification for for private housing and car charging station for things like service stations that we looked at Planning Commission the other night. Are there any electrical charging stations in any of these parking structures that are being built?
And if you'd like to answer that, as far as what you've will bring forward.
I'm sorry, it was hard for me to hear the question. Could you repeat it for me?
The question is, are there any charging stations in any of these relatively large parking structures?
The parking structures are designed with spaces that can accommodate charging stations. That is an evolving part of the code, but the floor plans do show locations for the opportunity for charging stations in the future.
Great, thank you.
I don't know if you have any additional comments on that, but I think that we tried to design it so that we could accommodate those stations.
Perfect. And
Hi, this is Howard Jacobs, president of the company that's the applicant. If you look at the plan, Mr. Busk, sheet A302, the first floor parking garage, there is one EV specific space for visitors that meets current state requirements. And then throughout the garage, there are, I believe, a total of 10 or maybe more than that. They're identified on the basis of spaces that will be wired to accommodate chargers, and then chargers will be installed based upon tenant demand. Thank you.
great, thank you very much. And then the comment I have is actually to Ann. This is a fantastic residential-looking multi-story building. It actually looks residential compared to our previous case. You might be able to use some of the architectural elements in this case to soften the previous building. Just an editorial comment. Seeing any other further questions? Seeing and hearing none, can we then move on to the public?
Vice Chair Busk, there were no comments received via email or voicemail per the agenda statements for the current protocols.
You did send out an email.
We did have the one email of support that I alluded to in my presentation from the northerly property owners.
Thank you.
Property owner.
And we have no call-in public? So seeing that, we'll close public hearing and bring it back to debate for the committee. Let's see, let's start with online again. By voice call. Mr. Andreoff, do you have anything else to add to the project before we go on to call for it?
No, I don't. Not at this. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you. I just wanted to say kudos to the staff and the applicants for addressing the issue of whether the whole building was correct in context of the rest of the downtown. And then I was pleased to see the correspondence from the adjoining property owner. It's always been a question in my mind as this project made its way through the process, how the owner of the residential property there on the corner was going to feel, and he indicated that he's fine with the project, and so that answered that question for me. Other than that, I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anything in the chamber?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. I do want to thank staff for your work in bringing this forward. It's very refreshing to be able to work on something positive like this. So I just want a couple of observations. I love the fact that this is really well aligned with what we supported last year in terms of removing density caps. And also, I think it's a great model of sustainability with the rooftop solar and the vertical green walls and being a half mile from transit. So I think it's a great project.
I also think this is a really well done project from all angles, staff, applicant, and I would like to call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to support.
Please. And a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, so let's see. We'll do raise of hands in chamber, and then I'll call for the roll on the telephone. All in favor, raise your hands. That's 3 raised hands. Online, Richard, Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Ms. Higgins?
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff? Mr. Andrioff?
Vote to approve.
Ms. Franklin?
I vote to approve.
So the motion passes unanimously. And we can move on our agenda. Move on. Is our chairperson still in the back, or did she leave us?
When we talked earlier, she said she'd come back, so.
Oh, okay.
I think I hear her now.
Welcome back.
Thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda is a verbal status report from the city planner, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go over some of the major projects and planning efforts that are affecting the downtown. The local coastal plan, we are still working on finalizing the adaptation strategies. We're working with the Coastal Commission staff on that. We have initiated our general plan comprehensive update. This will update all the elements of the general plan. It'll have a smart and sustainable corridor plan to focus growth in our 4 corridors, those corridors being the Coast Highway, Mission Avenue, Oceanside Boulevard, and a portion of Vista Avenue. We are also working on getting certification of the incentive district overlay, which was part of the Coast Highway project, which we talked about today regarding the roundabouts. The incentive district provides for enhanced height and density in exchange for public benefit. That has been adopted, it just has not been certified yet with the Coastal Commission. The Article 12 amendments that also came up today that removed the density cap, expanded the TOD area, and also clarified tandem parking and inclusionary housing. Those are effective outside the coastal zone because they were adopted, and they are still waiting for certification with the Coastal Commission to be effective inside the coastal zone. And then finally, the downtown commercial uses that were adopted by council. The staff is working with the Coastal Commission to get those certified as well. More project-specific basis, it was mentioned earlier in maybe one or both of the presentations. 901 Peerview, the 12 units and 2,000 square feet of commercial. This mixed-use project was approved by council on January 8th. The Oddfellows Building, Banquet and Events Center, that's still under conditional use permit review. Haven't heard a lot of movement on that recently. The Marriott Residence Inn, this is at 1103 North Coast Highway. The roadway end, the Flying Bridge, that site. This is 117 rooms, 4 stories, some meeting space, and a restaurant. We are still working with the Coastal Commission staff regarding a low-cost visitor accommodation survey and then encroachments into the habitat. There's been a lot of back and forth between Coastal Commission staff and planning staff, and we continue to work with them in the hopes of getting their approval on that. And then finally, the NCTD did have a request for proposals. It was issued with an April 15th deadline. I'm not sure, I haven't heard any updates on that, but this would affect the redevelopment of the Oceanside Transit Center with mixed uses consisting of commercial, residential, and transit-oriented uses. And staff will be recommending a specific plan likely. With that, I don't have anything else to report, but I would, if the chair would bear with me, ask the committee members how today's meeting went under the COVID protocol, and particularly the people on the phone. We'd like to hear from them if they could understand and just, I guess, generally how it went.
Would anyone?
Can I make a comment on that?
Certainly.
It went great. It really went well. With the exception of the first developer presentation, I had the feeling that they were using a speakerphone, and it was much harder to understand than all the rest of the presentations. But other than that, it's a little confusing to try to watch the video at the same time as listen to the phone because there is that delay. So when you guys raise your hands to vote, we don't see it on the screen, and that's a little disorienting. But as long as you report out how many hands were raised, I think it went well. Thanks for doing this.
Does anyone else? Dana?
Yes. This is Dana. That same concept as Rick, there was a little bit of lag. I'm actually watching on mute the meeting on TV, so that was helpful to me to see kind of the body language and the hand raising and things. There's a little bit of lag time between the phone and that as well, but I was able to follow along. So I think for our first attempt, it went extremely well, and I really appreciate everyone accommodating the circumstances and moving forward.
I'm going to say the same thing, guys. I think it went really well. I understood everything, and I think we'll get better with each time we give it another try. I enjoyed it. It went well.
was pleasantly surprised how well we could hear overall. I was concerned many conference calls, it's very difficult to understand everything, but this went really well.
Anyone here in the chamber wish to speak?
I'd just like to, for you, Jeff, having the entire note from or the entire testimony from the public read instead of just the first 15 words or whatever, worked much better. At the Planning Commission the other night, we just had the first paragraph of each one of the public's comments read into the record, and it left a lot of meat out of the discussion. So I think having the entire note read was really beneficial.
On that note, pardon the pun, there's discussion, and this whole process is evolving literally daily as we go through this. We're coordinating and following the lead from the council, but there's, and talking to other cities, how they're doing it. One of the ideas is to still put a limit on the reading so that it's not at 3 minutes, maybe it's 2 minutes. So there's this balance between we want to provide for that testimony, but at some point there's efficiencies and other issues that come in. So I don't know, Vice Chair, do you think 2 minutes would be a reasonable limit on
It's not a bad place to start. Yeah,
see
as
how
you
it
say,
goes.
it's an evolving process, and that might give us the main points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashton?
Yeah, my only comment would be if this is going to be something that has to continue for quite some time in terms of doing meetings this way, video might be a good consideration. And if any of you saw the County Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, they provided a great model as to how this type of meeting could be done by video.
Yes, thanks. I thought the audio was okay. You really got to pay attention to hear the people on the phone, but it wasn't terrible. And I think just coming to this chamber is also what I worry about wherever I go. I do feel safe here. So thank you for that.
And I will add that when I was in the back, I now understand the people who were on the phone with the lag. It is very disconcerting. So to the extent that the lag can be condensed, that would be great. Don't know if that's possible, but... and I also think that the 2-minute limit would be beneficial as a start on the public comment so that there is more time for the comments to be read. And as long as people know that up front so that when they're writing, they don't write more than, they get their points across sooner so that that all gets included. I had one quick question about your report. What is the status with the Coastal Commission with respect to their certifications? Are they like 2 months behind, or are they about to release their, there seem to be a number of these that we're waiting for Coastal Commission certification, and I'm just curious, and most specifically about the incentive plan, but all of them in general.
The way the process works is we submit a package to them and they review it, and invariably they ask for more information. And so then we provide that information. Sometimes, to be fair to them, sometimes it takes us a while to get that information to them, either because it's difficult or because we have a lot of workload going on. Then once it goes back to them, quite often they still ask for more, maybe more detailed refinement of the information we provided. And so there's this back and forth regarding the information. Our staff liaison, or I guess the Coastal Commission staff who's assigned to Oceanside, works part-time. I think, to be fair to them, I think they're understaffed, but I don't want to get into the internal organization over there. That's just my own opinion. But we share your frustration.
Do you have a sense as to when perhaps the incentive plan might get certified?
In the near future. I don't think it'll be that far out.
But this year?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, just checking. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress, but I just
That's
wanted to be sure to inquire about that.
And that's all I had. I would like to follow up on a couple comments. In the Northern County Planning Directors meeting I was in recently, or conference call, there was talk about implementing video somehow for the public testimony. I guess the County of San Diego is doing it. It is a challenge. You have to have everyone mute their mic. You have to have people coordinate because there's different agenda items. As I understand it, the county had one staff person solely assigned to that. And so I'm not saying we can't do it, but there is a challenge. In terms of Zoom, we've already discussed that with our IT staff, and they had some concerns with that. I think we've all heard the stories of, I'm not sure if you call it photo bombing or Zoom bombing, whatever the word is, but there were some inappropriate interactions into the Zoom. But those ideas of video and or having a live phone call in from the citizens are being considered and discussed. We do, again, have to take our lead from the council, our city council. The only other thing I would like to add is I appreciate the comments on the safety. We had staff go through here and sanitize it prior to this meeting. So even if there was a meeting last night or something, they came through and they wiped it clean for all the common areas. And so we are trying to make an effort and along with social distancing, et cetera, to make it a safe environment. So I appreciate that. And that's all I had, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports. Is there anyone who has a report that they would like to make? Mr. Busk.
I have a very exciting report. Buena Vista Lagoon, it looks like after 35 or 40 years of back and forth and sometimes heated debate, we may have a solution to get rid of the cattails in Buena Vista Lagoon and turn it back to saltwater lagoon from what it is now. And that will be presented to Sandag on May 22, according to the current schedule. Looks like everyone signed off on it, all the various parties. And if we can get Sandag to sign off on it, if the board agrees to it, then it'll be ready to go into final engineering and hopefully funding in the near future.
I could not be more thrilled. I just think this is fabulous news. And I commend your group for continuing on with the cause, because I know it's been a challenge. Thank you for your efforts. Anyone else on the phone who has any updates they'd like to present?
Hi, this is Rick. I was curious if Jeff has any news on the Oceanside Beach Resort.
The question was any news on the Ocean Beach Resort, and I don't have any news to report. They're continuing with their construction. Our building division has made it clear that their inspectors are very busy and the construction in the city is continuing on. Not to diverge, but the building division has also noted that the submittal of plans has diminished maybe a little, but not much. So I think that bodes well for going into the economic recovery that we're all anticipating to be needed.
And then if I could, thank you, Jeff, if I could, I want to thank staff for continuing to move these projects through the pipeline. What a delight it was to approve these two projects today. And I'm looking forward to seeing some more in the future. Thank you.
And I'd like to second those comments. It is exciting and encouraging to see these kinds of projects coming forward. And despite all that's going on, to see everybody persevering and doing the best they can with what we have to work with, even with all the uncertainty that's currently before everyone, it's just really, it's very exciting and very uplifting. So kudos to the staff and to the applicants for persevering. Anyone else on the phone have to wish to make any comments?
Yes, this is Dana. I echo your comments, Claudia, about kudos to the city and staff for moving forward on projects and the applicant. I can add to the input about the Oceanside Beach Resort project. The last update that we received from the developer at the Oceanside board meeting was that yes, they are indeed moving forward with construction. The last timeline that we received of anticipated completion is February 2021. Due to the heavy rain we experienced this last month, the month prior, and the completion we're in now, but they are on track, and we're all very much excited for that to be completed. In regards to the tourism in Oceanside, obviously, like everyone, our industry has been very hard hit, and we have over half of our, well, if you're not counting the vacation rentals, but just in terms of hotels, over half of our stakeholders are currently closed. The others have occupied business. So, that is a concern, but we are very positive and pivoting on a daily business, working closely with the city and Main Street and the Chamber and our other partners on just supporting the community and supporting our tourism stakeholders to, try to stay the course and everything reopens back to normal. We haven't lost any momentum, and we can just continue, although we know there will be changes. We're able to continue. I've been working very closely with city staff and our organizers that bring citywide events into Oceanside with a major economic impact, such as Race Across America, other cities. We're having to encouraging to work both not to cancel but to postpone and reschedule, and working very strategically on what the best time could be, knowing that we're not really sure when everything could open up and resume as normal, but we're having a conversation, and our event organizers have been very complimentary of city staff, the Ocean staff, of how the support services that we're providing. In addition to scheduling and working with existing business, very positive for our organization that I'm been receiving inquiries and bids for new business. There are indeed both want to travel group meetings, want to come into Oceanside as soon as August if possible. Obviously have to continue to pivot and change per the county and state guidelines for gatherings, but we see that as a positive indication that our industry and our community will be able to, bounce back, and for you've all noticed everyone rallying around each other and supporting businesses, so that's been very positive. That is my update.
Dana, as part of your update, because you're more intimately involved with all this than the rest of us, has there been any discussion at the city level about when the hotels might be able to open up again?
Sorry, I'm trying to listen to you on TV and then respond on my phone. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Yes, we are, again, we're following state, county, city guidelines. So from my understanding, each property is working independently, whether they're independently managed or part of a Marriott corporation. Everyone has different guidelines. We do currently have some hotel properties that are open for business because they are providing services for the approved categories from the state of, emergency services or long-term, essential needs services, essential needs business. So they are working along those, but I do not have an update on a set date, because we're just, as we all follow, kind of the weekly, monthly guidelines and changing when we can gather again or travel again. That will be the guidelines that our stakeholders will follow.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the phone have a committee report or something they wish to share?
Nothing for me. Hi, this is Rick. In the interest of time, I'm just going to direct everyone to the Main Street Oceanside website that details all of our activities supporting the downtown businesses, mainstreetoceanside.com. Thank you.
Okay, well, unless somebody else has any further comments, I consider this committee meeting adjourned.